Welcome to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the doctor tea hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop in the wild world of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannon, and she's Nylene, two credentialing pros with front row seats to all the chaos.
From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
We got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles, the podcast where the tea is real, the stakes are high, and we say what everyone else is too scared to say.
Oh, and today we are diving deep into the side of credentialing most people whisper about, weaponized credentialing, and how it's turning hospitals into courtrooms.
Yes, we are. And honey, for the first time since we started Credentialing Chronicles, we are doing something a little bit different. No disclaimer is needed because we brought the live tea piping hot. We are not alone today. With us today is someone who's been through it, risen above it, and now defends hospitals from the fallout. Please say hello to Dr. Stephen Cohen, MD, MBA, colorectal surgeon, VA General Surgery Section Chief, VCU faculty physician, and national voice for advancing medical, legal integrity, and patient safety.
Yes, not only is he a powerhouse now, but y'all, he has got a story for us. Early in his career, he was on the receiving end of weaponized credentialing. And today, he's the guy they call when the stakes are high and the lawsuits are real.
Dr. Cohen, welcome to the show. We are honored to have you here. First guest
Thank you so
ever,
much.
sir.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for the opportunity.
And so before we even jump into like lawsuits and MPDB chaos and docs misbehaving, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a board certified general and colon and rectal surgeon. I've been in practice now 31 years. I trained at Southern California, UCLA Medical School, did a general surgery training at Boston University, a colorectal fellowship at the Cleveland Clinic in Fort Lauderdale, spent 23 years in the private sector, but still teaching, training, educating medical students, residents along the way. The last 8 years now, I'm at the Richmond VA Medical Center, active clinical practice, doing medical legal work for both plaintiff and defense, as well as continuing to teach, train, and educate both medical students and residents.
Oh, wow. That's so impressive. Yes, we're so excited. So in previous conversations, I want to go back. You said you were once a victim of credentialing used against you. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like and what we're talking about when we say weaponized credentialing. We've talked about all the good stuff that credentialing has done for us, right? But we also want to know how it can be used against doctors against doctors. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So early in my career, I joined a hospital that did not have anyone with my particular specialty. And you say, so what? What's so special about you? Well, really nothing. But as a colorectal surgeon, we do things that other surgeons don't want to do, like a lot of the anorectal surgery, and we do colonoscopy as surgeons, but the GI doctors do it. And the thing that I didn't realize, nor do they teach you in practice, is that the busier you get as a new physician, you are taking away other doctors in that community's livelihood. And when you start messing with people's money, they get very upset. So I got busy in a hurry. And it wasn't just because of Stephen Cohen. The reason why I got busy is I joined a group of 2 other surgeons about 20 miles away from the main office. Patients for decades had been sent to that group. Once they knew there was a new doctor in a different location, that's why the patients got sent right away, because I'm a completely unknown entity, and I get that. Right.
No
so
waiting,
it's like,
no waiting.
You now have an office in a different location. We want to go see that young doctor. Fine. So in about 6 months to a year, I became literally the busiest surgeon at this hospital. and it irritated everybody, right? The gastroenterologist, because I was doing a lot of their colonoscopy. I was doing things that the other surgeons had never heard of. And again, some of this is very nuanced, but surgery for chronic constipation, surgery for fecal incontinence, they had never heard of this. They were, older surgeons, bread and butter general surgery. I was bringing newer, not new to me, but new concepts to them. I got real busy. They thought I was probably doing something wrong. That led to a lot of peer review. So if there are certain triggers in the hospital that would allow the committee members made up of nurses and doctors, other ancillary staff, to make sure everything is on the up and up. It's peer review, right? So if there's an unexplained death in the hospital, if there's removing the wrong limb, the obvious things, they get reviewed.
Yeah, we've talked about peer
So what
review.
happened was I was a lot of my specimens were normal, right? I would take out a normal piece of colon in a constipation. I expect to be normal. It got peer reviewed. They found it below standard of care. I would open up an anal fistula tract, not expecting to have tissue, just to allow I didn't want the wound to close prematurely. That's the way we fix it. That's how I was trained. I've done it lots of times. The pathologist looks at it and says, we don't see a fistula tract. Dr. Cohen must have done something wrong. Well, there was lots of these. And so letters came to me. I wasn't so nice in my response back to them. And so part of it was me, and I got it, was I don't, you were young. I thought I knew everything. I know better now. But it escalated to the point is even when they took all of my cases to be reviewed on the outside by a blinded colorectal surgeon, 2 different surgeons across the country, they found that I met the standard of care. I did not breach the standard of care. They didn't care. They were doing everything they could to get rid of me.
So
what happened?
These were going to the committees. We had to hire an attorney. It was a whole thing. It got to the point that at the very final attorney meeting, they realized they didn't have a case, and we were going to sue the hospital for lots of money, right? And they dropped it.
So were there other colorectal surgeons? You said you were the only one in the committee. Were there other colorectal surgeons on the peer review committee?
There were not.
Just GI doctors that were in another practice?
So the only doctors that were on the peer review committee were the doctors that are at that hospital, which are made up of my competition, the general surgeons, my competition, the GI doctors, their friends, the pathologists, right? They have known each other for 20 years, right? It was, how dare we're losing money. This guy's taking all of our work. And so that was a cascade of events. But once we dropped it cost me a lot of money to defend myself, but I did everything right. Once they realized that this could be a major suit against the hospital,
that you weren't going to back down, right?
But it definitely is a thing that can happen.
Okay. And so did you, get any of the money back?
I did not. I took it as a learning experience. And I'm not so hot-headed anymore that I used to be. So yes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
And what did that teach you? What did that teach you about the power dynamic in a hospital system? And I'm curious to know, was it a not-for-profit hospital, or was it a for-profit hospital, and was it a community hospital where the community surgeons or the community doctors basically took over versus corporate?
Right. That's a great question. This was a community hospital for profit, right? So they had a vested interest in keeping their surgeons who had been there 2 decades busy and happy. And then a young buck came along and disrupted the cart.
Exactly.
But the power dynamics in the hospital can be significant. And, it's made up of, your peers, but you got to be on the committees. There's a lot of, nepotism going on because I'll do this for you. I'm sending you patients, right? So there's a lot of that goes on that you don't learn as a resident because it wasn't part of our training.
Yeah. Nobody teaches you the politics of it all. So you get in, this all happens, you spend all of this money to defend yourself. Did it almost change your career path?
Had it gone farther, it definitely would have. Before they decided to drop it, I was about 15 minutes away from being kicked off the hospital. which would be a significant issue reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank,
you're right.
I would have had trouble.
Yes.
So it would have been a completely different career path.
This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Advanced Quality Compliance, your white glove credentialing crew. We get it. One person doing the work of 5, audit season looming, files all over the place. AQC steps in with expert hands and calm minds, digitizing your chaos, handling the details, and keeping you audit ready 24/7. Think less stress, more success with a touch of luxury. No stress, no mess, just AQC white glove service. Visit aqccvo.com to get started.
What would you say to a young provider going through this who maybe just got out of school and doesn't have the financial capabilities to defend themselves and knows that they're being bullied by using peer review in the incorrect fashion, to not use peer review in a positive way, but rather to weaponize it?
Yeah, I would say defend yourself at all costs. I mean, it doesn't matter at that point, because had I not have done that, I mean, fast forward 30 years, I would have had a completely different trajectory. I don't know if any academic center would have ever hired me with any of that baggage. So I would say, documentation is key. You've got to document what you're doing, why you're doing it. And, don't be a hothead. Yes. Be nice to everybody. And, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. I made a bad judgment to irritate everybody, which fueled the fire.
Yes, that's a good takeaway, the judgment. I love that. Now, let's get into the case that you talked about. A hospital says no to a provider because of his history. This is really a provider with issues. And that provider, let's say, turns around and files a defamation, lawsuit. What do we even, Nylene? I mean, how do we even ask that question, right?
Right. Can you walk us through your role in that and how the hospital handled being attacked for trying to do the right thing?
Yeah, so I was involved in trying to defend a hospital that did the right thing in a provider that was causing harm to the community. And that's a different story. Now, it was the other way. This was a provider that had only been working there for about a year and a half, and in a 12-month period had 14 major preventable complications. 3 of them directly led to death of the patient. So any death got up to peer review. The committee met, and they decided to pull his privileges to protect the patient because there was clear negligence. Yeah. So anytime a provider gets kicked off staff more than 30 days, it's an automatic reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank. So what happened was the provider then quit, tried to get another job, and was being denied privileges because of this issue that was going on. So he felt, I need to sue the hospital to try to clear my name. The hospital hired me with a very simple question. The question is, looking at these 14 cases of these complications, was the hospital justified in kicking this provider off to protect the community? That's an easy question. So I went through each of the 14
did you
cases.
Find? Yes, tell us.
And, he was deposed about each of the cases. And it was a clear breach in the standard of care. 3 patients should not have died. And the excuse was, it was the hardest case I've ever done. You can't say that for every case, okay? You can have one hard case, but every case that's a complication, you cannot say it was the hardest case, right? So it was clear that the hospital was well within the right. The hospital has a fiduciary duty to protect the citizens or the community from bad physicians, right? We're all going to get complications. But that many short period of time that was preventable really was the key. And it's very interesting. And the reason why it piqued my interest is because it it brought me back 30 years because his other excuse was they're picking on me. I'm a busy surgeon. Fine, right?
I think we need to put a part of our PSA on this episode. Patients, ask your doctor, is this the hardest case you ever had?
Yeah, exactly. Patients, ask that.
Yeah, ask that. Because if they say yes, go find a second opinion, okay?
So the same scenario, your case, right? You were being quote unquote picked on and incorrectly using peer review against you. But in this case, it's all the other cases that we've been talking about is the hospital was trying to do the right thing and protect the patient. So where's the line between due diligence and
that's
defamation?
A great question. But again, I never used the excuse of they're picking on me. I knew that but I was focused on the medicine. Look, you want to pick on my cases? Let's review all my cases. Patient presented with X, Y, and Z. This is the workup I did. I gave her the options of medical therapy, surgical therapy. This was a surgery. None of my patients had complications, right? This was, we think you're doing too much surgery, right? Well, okay. I'm getting a lot of patients. Good for me, right? So it's a whole different ball game. The defamation suit that I was asked again to really defend the hospital were they justified in kicking this physician, surgeon, off staff because of what they found? And these cases were reviewed on the outside. They were also found to be below standard of care. It wasn't just me. They had already had it reviewed. It was already below standard of care. My question was, if we find a provider that falls below the standard of care with 14 complications in 12 months, 3 of them leading to death, did they have the right to protect the citizens that live around this hospital? Absolutely.
So here's the tea: is that doctor still practicing?
Well,
does he still have a license?
As far as I know, that doctor is still practicing, not at that hospital, but somewhere. Right.
Okay. And that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Did all the questions? Did the medical board get involved? Because sometimes we see medical boards don't act upon things that it's
the
not
medical
a system that
boards
talks to each
in
other.
general don't get involved in things like this. If now in the state where this was, but I don't want to say it, but Virginia, in the state where this was, if you have I think 3 medical malpractice suits, and many of these did come to medical legal action on the side, not related to the hospital, obviously. But if you have 3 in a 2-year period, the medical board does get involved. So more likely than not, this particular case, the medical board. Now, every state is different, right? Some of the medical boards, you get sued, so what? There's really nothing. The rule for physicians that, and I have multiple state licenses because I do telemedicine. If I get sued, and there's a finding against me, I do have to tell all of my state licenses that happened. Whether they do anything or not, it's really up to them.
And again, you have to do that yourself, right? It's expected that the doctor yourself
to do it yourself. And however, depending on the state, 1, 2, or 3 years, if and when you renew that license, that's always a question. Because I just read, it's since your previous renewal, have you been named, sanctioned, that type of thing. So if you don't do it and you don't answer that question honestly, they can take your license away.
Well, I was going to say the burning question is, how did the court view the hospital's responsibility to protect the
definitely
patient?
That was the right thing to do for the hospital.
Perfect. Look at that.
Yes.
So,
and in your experience, now that you've been doing this for a while, are you seeing this more often or less often?
I'm not seeing it that often. I mean, really. I mean, this was a very unusual case of this high number of complications in a short period of time. I mean, you're right. Most of us that operate don't have this much problem. Usually the bad surgeons get weeded out with medical legal cases because you start having multiple suits. But it's interesting in my experience that I've gotten it on my end 30 years ago, and now here I'm defending a hospital for essentially doing the same thing, although it's different, just trying to protect the community. But we don't see it that much.
Exactly.
And these are probably two extremes from what I've seen throughout my career.
And do you get called in a lot for different hospitals trying to protect the patients in the community? Is that
no? I don't see a lot of that. What I normally see more is medical legal cases of, patient has a complication. Was the complication a breach in the standard of care, meaning what a reasonable, prudent physician would do? And if it was a breach, did it cause harm? But, 1 out of 7 physicians are going to get sued. Most common reason we get sued is bad outcome. It's not necessarily malpractice. So I do see it a lot in the VA system I am now, because if there's a complication and the patient wants to sue me, they don't sue me. I'm a federal employee. They sue the federal government. And I am on a national committee that oversees a lot of complications throughout the country. It's very common that the committee, our committee's feeling is, listen, they're veterans. They want to get some money for a bad outcome. That's fine. So most veterans are given the benefit of the doubt without a lot of rigmarole to just give them money because they're veterans, right? And that's the issue.
Yeah, so I guess really what we could say, because we do have a lot of hospital administrators that listen to us. And so I guess it's good to know that there are physicians out there that also have the legal expertise that can defend you. So if you are doing something to protect your patients and there are doctors and everybody is scared to, blow the whistle, know that there are people like Dr. Cohen that are out there that are willing to step to your aid and look at the facts and be able to defend you in situations like that. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about.
And that's important. Protection. Because I'll tell you why. Because I was a chairman. I've this hospital that they almost got rid of me, and I stayed. I became chairman of surgery. I was there for 20 years. We struggled sometimes with reporting bad physicians because we didn't want to get the lawsuit. And we know if we just suspend them for 29 days, that's not reportable to the National Data Bank. They have no recourse.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because this is totally where it gets messy, because even the hint of a lawsuit can scare a hospital from reporting to the NPDB. So then what? Dangerous providers just float around?
Well, that's a great question, but it is a real concern for hospitals about getting smacked in that lawsuit. It's costly, it's time, it's depositions. They don't want to get involved, and I see their point, right? But certainly we have had bad, dangerous physicians that we didn't care about, that we pulled the trigger and just did it, right? And I've had these conversations with CEOs.
I can see the point until it's your loved one or somebody that's close to you's loved one that's in that situation, and then they're not alive anymore, and it becomes way closer to home, and then it's a problem like what you see on the Texas, the big credentialing case that became national, but it's when it became close to home, some legal representative's mother, that it was like, wait a minute, this is wrong, needs to be investigated. And I just feel like we need to create a safe place for hospitals, providers, anybody, an alcoholic nurse that's on the floor functioning, but you could smell the whiskey, to be able to say, hey, we need to have some type of reporting to protect the patient.
Right. Are we letting fear override patient safety, right? Is where the scary part is. And so, in your opinion, is the NPDB doing what it is designed to do, or is it failing?
That's a great question. I think the National Practitioner Data Bank doesn't really do anything. It doesn't do anything. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything. I'm on there 5 times. Every settlement, I have 3 settlements. I'm on there. It doesn't stop you from doing anything, right? So if you have multiple lawsuits and multiple reports to the to the National Practitioner Data Bank, it may limit you getting malpractice insurance. But other than that, it doesn't do anything. All right, because patients can't get on there.
Right.
Yeah,
and we talked about that.
Who's auditing it? Yeah. Go ahead,
and it's interesting, except if you're in Miami, half the doctors don't even carry malpractice insurance. So it doesn't matter that they're on the data bank 25,000 times.
That's the other thing. Yeah, it doesn't really do anything. I don't know. It's right. When I'm opining on standard of care, the opposite attorney will look me up. Oh, okay, sure, I'm on there. Doesn't mean anything, right? So they use it to try to make me look bad when I'm testifying as a medical legal case. But you're right. It doesn't, other than just being it reported, it doesn't carry weight. I think a lot of practitioners, and I've given talks to the residents about what it means to be on it, they fear being on it. They feel if you're on there once, you're done. And I say, look at me. I'm still here. Yeah. You're not done. I'm not done, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it is fear from the physician side.
Mm-hmm. And well, I mean, it does at least keep some type of a rap sheet, right? At least it's something that we need to ask about and perhaps lead to open conversations in the medical staff and in the credentials committee so that, your peers are being able to at least say, hey, what's going on? What's the story behind this? And at least say, hey, we are watching you. So I guess that's part of the whole history of why we needed that repository of where we're holding them to.
Well, I think it's, we do have it, and it is a way to maybe catch providers that aren't so quick to self-disclose, right? So, I mean, that's really, what it kind of does help, because a lot of people won't say anything and then you find something on the MPDB. But ultimately, I feel like the MPDB has a lot more power to do a lot more, and they're just not using it. And that's,
they
kind
definitely
of sad.
Could.
Yeah.
And it's, I definitely think it's fear. And the other thing I'll mention is that when I was the chairman of surgery and we had a provider that we just did the 29 days, we didn't want to get sued. The CEO said, because I knew the surgeon, he said, Steve, go tell him to go work at a different hospital or we're reporting. Right. So there is a lot of, by that time I'd been there almost 20 years. I felt a part of the community. Power. Right. So and I talked to the surgeon and guess what? He didn't come back to our hospital. So it's almost like, let somebody else have that issue, right? And that's, unfortunately, a lot of these community hospitals, that's how they think. It's protect us. We don't want to get dragged into the lawsuit.
And screw everybody else.
Yeah.
Exactly. So have you seen what happens when no one reports and the provider then just keeps working?
Well, certainly this, the bad surgeons or the bad providers will continue to do harm. And obviously, it's going to become a medical legal issue. There's no doubt. I mean, the good providers will always prevail. The bad providers, just like any other business, anything, pilots, lawyers, nurses, you're going to have 3% of the people are bad. The other 97% do the right thing. Usually the bad ones, you start getting multiple suits, they wind up doing something else or not getting malpractice insurance, getting too many lawsuits, and they have a bad reputation, moving around to different states. Right.
Something.
There's always something.
Mm-hmm. And then that's where the medical staff professionals step in, right? So the medical staff professional, again, we talk about voluntary resignation. You see people moving around. And right here, you hear it from Dr. Cohen. That's what you are supposed to be looking for. And sometimes it's between the lines, right? So let's talk about the flip side. When credentialing is used as a weapon to push someone out, you've said you've seen it. So what does it look like when it maybe crosses the line?
Right, because from where we sit, sometimes it's not about patient safety. It's personal, it's political, it's retaliation dressed up as professionalism.
Yeah, It could be a challenge. Like, it happened to me 30 years ago. I am definitely seeing a lot less of that type of thing now. So what is the difference? What's changed in 30 years? 30 years ago, most physicians were not employees of the hospital. They're in private practice. They had their, I joined 2 other people. We had a group of 9 of us. It was private practice. Fast forward now, 2025,
hot topic.
80-90% of every physician, I don't care what specialty, are hospital employees. There's a lot less of that nonsense. I get a salary. You want to bring another surgeon and do more, take my surgery? Live it up. I'm still getting a salary, right? So a lot of So a lot of it is based on that. There's a lot less competition, I think, now than there was 30 years ago, because medicine has changed.
True.
So I don't see what happened to me simply just trying to get me to do less surgery because I was taking money from them ever happening again.
Have you ever been in a situation where you think, nope, this isn't right. I'm not touching this. I'm not participating, like in 30 years of practice?
Well, I've never said that. I like seeing people with their pants down too much. I mean, but that's just me. As a colorectal surgeon, I mean, listen, people ask me all the time why I went into colorectal surgery. And I say, I don't know. When in med school, when they said I could be doing 36 holes a day, I thought they meant golf.
Oh my goodness. You're doing too much.
That's hilarious. Thank you so much for supporting the MSP community. You would be an ideal CMO at any hospital. So just saying, thank you for supporting MSPs. So what can you say to MSPs, medical staff professionals who say, oh, something doesn't sit right? What do you tell the medical staff professional that you work so closely with in your time as a committee chair and all the other work that you've done?
Or wait a minute, one other thing, Dr. Cohen. Or what if their CMO just don't listen? They can't get nothing through. What do you tell that MSP?
You don't hold it in. You got to say something. You could be saving somebody's life. I mean, go to the department chairman.
Yes.
Go to the CEO. There's other people rather than the chief medical officer that should be the liaison between the medical staff and administration, but you might not get the answer. And we've had that happen before. I mean, chief medical officers come and go, right? But the CEO, the chief executive officer, is responsible for the hospital. The board is responsible, has a fiduciary duty to the hospital. Tell your supervisor, find the department chairman of that department, whether it's surgery, whether it's medicine, sit down, have a one-to-one. I'm not liking this. What can you do to help with this situation? But not saying it really will do more harm than good.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if you had control over this whole system, right, the NPDB, peer review protections, legal frameworks, what would you change to make this process fairer and safer?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I would do is I wouldn't leave it to the local hospitals to look at those decisions. It's almost like the medical legal world, right? You should have a committee, national, local, objective, not emotionally involved. It's the emotionality of it that drives everybody crazy, that people can't think straight. Whether you think you're taking too much business away, whether you're being bullied. No, there's a committee made up of old cranky doctors like me, right, that have nothing else to do, to say, I'm not emotionally involved. Let me look at the situation. Just like that case I was involved in. I'm not emotionally involved. This is a breach. You got to protect the community. You're out of here. That's reasonable. So that's definitely what I would do, and I would give more authority, believe it or not, to the National Practitioner Data Bank to make sure those things.
Yes.
So doctors don't go state to state and nobody knows, right? Unless you ask the NPD. There's got to be more accountability from that organization to protect not just the community that was there when you had a dysfunctional provider, but wherever they're going. Because that's a disaster.
Yeah. And oh my God, I just can't. You just said it so beautiful, and it's just so true. I just really want to say, from our conversation today, right? It seems that how do we rebuild trust in credentialing, right? It seems like everyone is scared. Right. The hospitals are scared. The doctors are scared. MSPs are scared. I don't even know, where do you start when there is so much fear in something that should be transparent?
Yeah, it's a challenge. But unless you change the system, I mean, nothing's going to change unless we, again, if you could take the emotionality out of it, I think that would be a big start. But, we try to do that in our system, because, again, I'm in the federal system where we look at cases where we're not emotionally involved. I don't review cases of our local hospital. I'll review cases in a different state. I don't know the providers. I don't know the patients. That's not my issue. My issue is, did the practitioner fall below the standard of care? Should the veteran get paid for pain, suffering, injury, right? And should the provider be reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank? A lot of times even though the veteran gets paid some compensation, we feel it was not a malpractice. It's a bad outcome. The provider does not get reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank. which is good. For example, let's say during anesthesia, a tooth accidentally gets knocked out. The veteran has successful surgery. Right. They need to go to the dentist afterwards to get a new tooth that costs $5,000. Well, the federal government, I'm on a committee, will say, let's pay for that. Don't make them pay for that. We did it. Well, that's fine. But we decide that we're not reporting that. That's a known complication, right? So why should that provider get reported to the National Practitioner Database?
Yeah, right. And so that makes a lot of sense. I think the objective. I think every hospital should be, and surgery center should be mandated to have objective peer review.
That would take all the nonsense out of it. He's my friend. I don't want to say anything. He sends me cases. I don't want to say anything. Right. If a GI doctor has a complication that I know, I don't want to say anything. He sends me cases. Right.
I actually was able to have the opportunity to have a sit down with David, who's currently the director of the NPDB, and we're looking to do some collaboration. So hopefully we can get him on here, and I can forward your interesting suggestions. So if you could, what part of the NPDB would you reform to make it more practical for medical staff professionals and physicians who do sit on peer review committees to use it in a healthy way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I would have to see exactly what they do and how their organization works. Maybe he wants to hire me. I can definitely help him. I'm fine with that.
All right, we'll send him a message. Hopefully he's listening.
Credentialing Chronicles, hooking people up right here.
That's right. Yeah, why not?
But I mean, Nylene has about 15 certifications behind her name, and they literally sat down with her and talked to her about reform. And so it'd be amazing,
to collaborate on something. So I'm excited.
It's a great idea, and some type of national, non-emotionally involved way to get the message out so everybody's on the same page.
And that's the stance that they should take, right? Is objectivity. And if you put that in every area, then what can go wrong? I mean, really, because that's what it's needed. I just have to say, Dr. Cohen, this has been incredible. You have given us legal, ethical, and emotional truth all at once. I don't know how you did it. And we want to include you. We do our PSA every episode. And so today you have to help us with that. Indeed. Is that okay? Nylene, take it away. What would you tell our doctors? And Nylene's going to bring you through it.
Okay, so to our listeners, MSPs out there, we love you. You are the ones making the tough calls and really helping our beautiful doctors. And we're keeping the lights on in this broken system, and we see you. So, what would you say to our MSPs? I know you touched on a little bit, but if you could sit down with all these beautiful medical staff professionals that are doing the work, what would you tell them, Dr. Cohen?
Thank you for all you do. Keep up the good work. We need you. The patients need you. The doctors need you. Yes. And if you see something, you don't like something, tell somebody. But all your work is very much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. And for our patients, what would you say for our patients to protect themselves?
Definitely, when you go to a hospital, bring somebody with you, right? Get second opinions. Don't take the first opinion. I tell my own family members this, right? Right. So have a patient, you need a patient advocate, bring somebody to the clinic, to the hospital, so you can hear what the doctors, what the nurses are saying, and get a second opinion. Get a second opinion.
Yes. Yes. And then just to, go ahead, Nylene, save it for the best for the last, right?
To the doctors, to your peers, to all these beautiful, wonderful doctors that work so hard, so many hours, so many years of training. And now you are going into peer review because your case got picked. What are we telling our docs?
I say this a lot because a lot of the young doctors will come to me when they get that letter is you just have it. Just because you get a letter from a peer review does not mean you fell below the standard of care. There are certain triggers that you may not know. A normal pathology specimen happened to me, right? An unexplained death. Something's good doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Do not be defensive. And I'll say that again because I didn't do that. Do not be defensive when you're answering the question. Just answer the question. It's not an interrogatory. It's not a courtroom. Explain what you did, why you did it. That's all you need to do. So don't be defensive.
Yeah, I feel like that is the key of our episode today is just take emotion out of it when you're dealing with patient safety, right? It needs, it needs, I mean, that was a lot of tea today. That is all for today. If you like this episode, please follow Credentialing Chronicles on Spotify, Apple, LinkedIn, TikTok. And remember, when the politics get loud, the truth still matters.
Yes, share this with all the MSPs you know, all the doctors that you know, because this episode was going to help a lot of credentialing professionals and hopefully doctors that you're listening, get involved, support your MSPs, and we hope to hear from you soon.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Whoo, that was a lot of tea. Who knew doctors have more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
Hit that follow button and don't forget, just because they have an MD doesn't mean they have a clean record.
See you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.